Tulga had left a comment saying how enjoyable the stories about Todd were, my cousin Todd. So here's a couple more. Years ago, there used to be a clothesline very similar to that one here in my grandparents' yard. I remember coming out in my Captain America underoos and going to the old cylindrical metal garbage cans to get the lid to use as a shield, and then having my grandfather say, "But that's your underwear. You went outside in your underwear." I'm like, "But it's like a costume." He's like, "But it's your underwear." So anyway, but where the ones in this yard were, they were more of a tubular construction than these. These seem to be like little I-beams, but over here they were tubes. And one summer we're out here, and Michael was swinging on them, like a jungle gym and everything. What we didn't realize was a wasp had built a nest inside the tube. So this wasp comes boiling out and stings him on the bicep. And he's clasping his arm, So somebody runs in the house and tells the adults, right? Maybe Holly, I don't know. And Michael, Todd, and Holly. I never thought about that. So here come my uncle, my aunt, and they rush out and they run right past Michael and get Todd and take Todd in the house. The reason being that Todd was supposed to be highly allergic to many, many things, including insect stings. And so if there was a wasp flying around, he was priority one. And so they took him back in the house. And nobody took Michael in the house. And I remember Michael, "Ow, ow, I've been stung by a wasp. Oh, here come my parents. Oh," and they're going right past me. And they got him. He wasn't stung. I was stung. Christmas time is here. Now, I don't really think my grandmother believed in all of this allergy stuff. And she may have had a point. Because I remember one summer, probably not the same as the wasp incident, Todd and I were staying here. Now, when they came to town, they had an option because not only their grandparents on their dad's side, but their grandparents on their mom's side, both in this city. So I think the rest of them were staying there. Todd was staying here. I was staying here. And his mom comes to visit in the morning before she's going wherever, and she's, checking to make sure he's okay. And he kind of, is like, "Yeah, I'm good. And the minute she walked out the kitchen door, he turns to my grandmother and he goes, "I'm ready for my sandwich." And she fries him some bacon on this stove, and she makes him a peanut butter and bacon sandwich on toast, and he ate every bite of it. He was allegedly allergic to both bacon and peanut butter. Never had a problem. And that happened a couple of times in a row that I saw him eat a peanut butter and bacon sandwich. Years later, I took Debbie and the boys to Sonic one night, and they just so happened to have a peanut butter and bacon milkshake at the time. And I'm like, in tribute to that childhood memory, I have to get this milkshake. So I got it. It was pretty doggone good. I drank every drop of it. And the dairy in it gave me a much worse lactose intolerant reaction than he apparently had from either the bacon or the peanut butter. Speaking of times that Todd and I would both be staying in this house, this bed is now facing 180 degrees, the opposite of what it was back then. But I want you to see the little footboard posts here, because they're in this story later. But like I say, the bed should be over there with the headboard against the opposite wall. Anyway, this is good enough for now. I always thought there was something vaguely Cobra-like about these posts. So one summer, and I never was quite entirely sure how this happened, my grandmother was keeping 3 grandkids, one from each of her 3 kids. Okay? So from my mom, me, but not my older sisters. From my uncle in the middle, Todd, but not his brother or his sister. And from the younger uncle, the baby girl, but not Sean. So, by the way, this is the only picture I could find of Christy. And of course, she's obviously much older there, but that's Christy. Sorry to embarrass you in this story, but Todd comes out worse than you do. So, my grandmother decides that she wants to get a picture of the three of us, since it's such a eclectic sampling, you know. So, we come in here, bed's over there, and grandmother's standing here, and she's gonna get a picture of us. I wish I could find this photo. I haven't seen it probably since it was developed, if I even saw it then. I may have only seen it in the moment and never actually seen the prints. But she's going to give me the baby to hold. And I'm like, oh, I don't hold a baby. Now, I was the youngest in my family. I had never interacted with babies. Todd had a baby sister. So he's like, give her to me, you know, you big baby. So he's going to hold Christy, and he puts Christy on his lap, and he's like straddling the little cobra, post here and everything. And so he poses, I'm beside of him, grandmother takes the picture, and he's like, and there's this mess of chocolate milkshake, we'll say. It was chocolate milkshake, that's what we'll say. Dripping all over his bare leg, because it's summertime, he's in shorts. And I hit the floor laughing. Because just moments before, he was like, there's nothing to fear from holding a baby. Oh my God, the worst possible scenario has happened from holding a baby for 5 seconds. Oh, me. I wish I had that photo. So now we flash forward in the story to, I'm going to peg it at 1995, and I'll explain why. I'm an adult. I'm at least 25 years old, so it's like half my life ago plus. And I've graduated high school, graduated college, gotten married, I'm employed, I have my first house. And after all those accomplishments, I'm visiting my grandmother, and we're here in this room, and she says, hey, I found something for you at a flea market. And she gives me a Darth Vader carrying case. She might have given me 2 that day, or I may just be combining 2 separate instances into one. But, you know, I'm her 25-year-old grandson, and she's still buying me Star Wars toys, so how cool of a grandmother is that? And the reason I can pinpoint that date is just a couple of days ago, I posted a photo in the thread on Rebel Scum in a conversation with Tolga about the video camera that I bought after college. So in 1992, I bought that video camera, and somewhere around the time that I was in that house, I posed for a picture. I think it was used in a submittal that I sent to Star Wars Insider magazine, but it's me holding the camera and posing in the toy room of that house with all my vintage collection up on shelves behind it. So it has to be after getting a job at Red Lobster, because those shelves came out of the freezer at Red Lobster, and I repainted them. And it has to be in that specific house, marriage 1, not marriage 2, because we moved everything out of the house. I wound up having to move back into the same house because I couldn't sell it. And then that room got turned into the nursery when I moved back into it for Orion, and when Zach came along for Zach, and all the toys were crammed into a much, much smaller room of that house. So the only window of opportunity that it could be is that specific time, and if you look up on the shelf behind me, you will see only 4 Vader cases. So I have 6 thanks to my grandmother. They weren't in the best condition, so there were missing clasps and things like that. This one's missing one on the side, and this one was missing one on the top. So these were the 2 that I felt comfortable customizing. So I took a Dremel and a blade and whatever else, and I hollowed out some of the dividers on the inside so that I would have space, adequate space for bigger objects. So right here, if you look across, that whole column has no dividers. 1, 2, 3, 4 that I carved completely out. And I smoothed them down as much as I could, but then everything that I keep in there, like Max Rebo's Red Ball Jet organ, or Han Solo's carbonite block, or the carbonite block from the Slave 1, those all nestle in there, and they're all kept inside Ziploc bags so that they don't get damaged from the burrs and things on the divided spaces. Also down here in this corner, I took out a divider for Max Rebo and Salacious Crumb to fit in there in Ziploc bags. So that's the reason I felt comfortable modifying these, was because I had so many of them and they were in damaged condition to begin with. So that's the contents of this particular Darth Vader case. And same thing on case number 5. I've detailed this in a previous video, but I'll go ahead and recap it. This is the case that has a hollowed out space here for size from. And I took out the divider back there for him, and he's in this cloth robe, so that's why he especially has to be in a Ziploc baggie and everything to keep him protected. So the other day I was taking photos. I have an album on Facebook called 365, and every day I upload a photo of a new Star Wars figure. I've actually banked all the way through the Droids and Ewoks collection, so I've got several weeks worth that I can post one at a time when the days roll around. But while I had size from out to photograph him for the Droids collection, I said I want to get a photo of him without his robe. So I was taking his robe off, and I'm like, oh, I feel like I'm stretching the material, and man, this material is really old. I could almost rip this material if I'm not very, very careful. I did not have any glitches with it. And then in conversation with a couple of people, actually Pro Customs, Mark Poon, and Tulga, I learned something I didn't know, was the prices that TIG from commands these days and size from commands these days. So I was like, holy cow, I've got to put a note on this guy in the case that says, don't take his robe off unless you have this many hundreds of dollars to spare to replace it. So yeah, I've got to make myself a little reminder not to mess with his robe anymore. And then what else? There was something in here I wanted to show you when I pulled out that Han Solo in carbonite. The other day I was taking a picture of Rancor Keeper, and here's the bag with everybody's accessories in it, but his hood wasn't there. And I was like, okay, random memory, this is a replacement Rancor Keeper, because my first one, I just stored him with his hood on in the case for many, many years. And he developed these spots on his head from that hood. Like there was a transference of pigment from one plastic to the other. And he looked like a pied hamster, really is what he looked like. And so I said, no, I'm replacing him. I used him for a custom of the bartender in the cantina. This is the replacement that I bought, and his hood is not kept with the other accessories because I didn't want things like a Man-O-Man's painted staff or anything else in here to get transference of pigment. So behind the Han and Carbonite block, in a Ziploc bag inside of a Ziploc bag, is the Rancor Keeper's hood, protected from everything else, making no contact with anything else in the case. So it took me a second to find that. I'm like, where in the heck is his hood? So yeah, at the age I am now, I just need to start leaving myself notes for the future me to figure out what the past me is forgetting. So that is several Todd stories and some Toyaholic memories all rolled into one. Thank you for watching.